Hello, and welcome to the podcast where good trivia gets rewarded and bad lies are punished. But will we catch the lies? This is What's the Fact?
Yes, dearly beloved, thank you for joining us on this wonderful morning. Now maybe you want to stand up and greet the person behind you.
It's not traditional. I think it's just the kind of churches you go to. I'm Warren Robertson, and this is Ryan Whittle.
Yes, sorry, that's my line. Yeah. That's my line. Yes, he's Warren Robertson. I'm Ryan Whittle. Welcome to the podcast. And it's a
big one.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's juicy.
One. Yeah.
Yeah, we both like this one.
If you could reserve your hate comments.
Nah, bring it up front.
Yeah, but click like at the same time. You know, we're not out here intending to offend, I think.
Yeah, no. You will just do it sort of organically, I think.
Casually via facts.
Yeah.
I
think the vibe, I think our listeners know the vibe that I lean toward the religious and you lean toward the not at all.
If by lean to, you mean I haven't been to a church since they stopped making me go when I went to school. And that you go every Sunday.
I'm quite fond of the one in the middle of Cape Town, and I live in Gordons Bay. So
you don't go every Sunday; you go most Sundays.
These days more like every second, sometimes even as bad as once a month.
Because you're a Muslim. You're Christian, obviously.
Yes, but I like the Methodist. I like the old. I like that ritual and the old religion thing too. And the happy clappies who think they're the only ones who are evangelical are a little bit wrong. The traditional ones.
Christianity, there's so many different subsects, and some of them sort of border on cults, and some of them are recognized religions, and it gets very complex. But we've got enough facts.
Oh, my word, this is going to be juicy. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be great.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Right. I'll have a nice little start. It's got nothing to do with Christianity, so we're safe for now.
So basically, you're just a man dressed like a Christian priest who's going to make some sort of fact about a non-Christian religion.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah, no, sure, we're safe.
I'm the world's first ever Methodist monk. We're going to start a new sect. The
only thing you have in common with monks is that you're not getting any. And you love a beer, right?
We brew our own beer.
Yeah, nice. Good.
So my first fact is the religion of Zoroastrianism.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk quite a bit about that, but I'll begin with a fact, and you can tell me what you think. Then we can discuss Zoroastrianism. But it is my fact is it's an offshoot of Islam.
Your fact is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, one of the things is it's one of the 13 big religions in the world.
What, Zoroastrianism?
Zoroastrianism, yeah, it's one of the 13 biggest religions in the world, and it's 4,000 years old. Yeah. I mean, some reckon it's 4,000 years old. It's probably the oldest of the current religions.
Well, fascinating.
So this whole Islam offshoot thing it's just nonsense, right?
Because I know you struggle with the old chronology sometimes. Which came first. So I think the research I did today, there was the debate about it's named after a chap called Zoroaster. And when did he live?
Yeah.
Now, I've got some sneaky suspicions about the origins of Zoroastrianism. Just because where it came from? Which part of the world?
Persia.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Yes. And there's definite sacred texts around 600 BCE. And I think at some point there was cross-pollination and influencing from the exile to Babylon, which then became an exile to Persia of the Jews because they were monotheistic. And Zoroastrianism is monotheistic.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Yeah.
But one of the, so you'll see now. What I'm going to do is I'll lead into my fact and you'll see why I'm kind of familiar with
this.
Let
me just say, quite right. I was tricking you. It is not an offshoot of Islam. I thought it might trick you because it came from the Middle East. Persia, and of course the spread of Islam was Arabia and quite quickly into Iran. I think within Muhammad's lifetime, I think.
But significantly later. We're talking 700 AD then.
Very much so, but I was hoping you'd be fooled by the dates. But the AD, the BCE, and the CE, and all that.
But
stuff.
you're right. There's a lot of debate about when it was actually founded. There's, as you say, there's texts and things from about 800, 600 BC. But recently they found a temple that's got indications of Zoroastrian that was from 2000 BC. So that's why
crazy.
I say it could be as much as 4,000 years old. They're not 100% certain, but yeah, it is.
And you know the famous Zoroastrian,
yeah,
famous one,
no,
Freddie Mercury is
famous Zoroastrian.
Yeah, it comes up in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's very sweet, the bond between him and his father, and the phrase that's in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody is a very well known phrase among Zoroastrianisms, which is good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And what I like about them as a monotheist myself is the foundation of their religion is the idea of good versus evil. So, I mean, that's not to be taken for granted.
Look, it's almost certain that these religions all influenced each other in the. And they certainly did when it comes to Christianity. But let me jump into mine because it's actually related to it. What I was looking at was I was saying because there's a saying: the only difference between a cult and a religion is time, right? And this does seem to play out. Like as I said, I did some research, and the world's 13 largest religions, every single one of them was founded at least 500 years ago, and that's my fact. So now we've got a starting fact each about the time frames of religion.
You say the 13 major ones,
the 13 biggest ones,
are all 500 years or older.
I can tell you what they are if you like. I can give you a hint. Of these, the 13 major ones, because 83% of the world's population ascribes to at least one of them, right?
Wow.
So they are Baha'i, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Confucianism, Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, Judaism, Shinto, Sikhism, Taoism, and Zoroastrianism.
Oh wow, Zoroastrian.
Yeah,
it's a smallish one, Zoroastrian. And the research I saw today, I think we're looking at the maximum of about 250,000. So small in number, but yes, the rest are quite big. Shinto, Japan, Confucianism. The one I'm not really certain of is Janae. What did you say?
Jainism.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you about Jainism if you like.
Sure.
I'm wild like this. So Jainism it's basically the third religion of India.
Oh.
It's it's only got about 4 to 5 million adherents. But it originated in India. It's one of the things where the goal of Jainism, so Indian religions tend to believe in reincarnation. So the goal of Jainism is to break that endless cycle of being reborn by living a non-violent life.
Yes.
So, not a terrible thing. You've got to live with as little negative impact on other living things around you as you possibly can, so that you can achieve this thing and escape from the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Much like Jesus.
Amen, brother.
Endless cycle of death and rebirth.
So, but your fact is they're all older than 500
all older
years.
than 500 years old.
I am happy with that fact. I think you're telling the truth. Yes, telling the truth.
Well, then you're a fool. I've started with a lie. I'll start with Baha'i.
Oh,
so Baha'i is founded in 1844.
Really?
Yeah, it was based on the life of its founder, Baha'u. It's very difficult to say. Baha'u'llah. I'm very sorry if I got that wrong. He lived from 1817 to 1892. And basically, he was a very kind of advanced level where he said, now that the next thing that's going to happen is that there's going to become a unification of all of the world's nationalities and races and religions, and we're all going to come together and we're going to form a universal civilization, and that the Baha'i are encouraged to play their part in making this happen, bringing all people together and spurning the next. So that's 1844.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite progressive.
I mean, yeah, but there's...
was he from India? Was he founded in like Hinduism necessarily, or? Because there's the little center there in North Riding, hey? You know that little center in North Riding?
Yes, and there's when I was at university, there was a little Baha'i society that would come, and then on a specific day of the week, they would give everybody vegetarian food, and everybody was very suspicious of them. Because if there's a very little religion and they're trying to give you free food, South Africans were like, okay, all right, what do you want?
I'll have that free food, but tell us.
But in all accounts, they were good people. But so the thing actually takes into account a lot of Krishna and Buddha and Zoroaster and Jesus Christ and Muhammad, and it brings all of these things together into one giant religion. It's very sweet. The other one that was on that list that you may have missed was Taoism.
Yes,
which has got 4 million believers, and it was begun in Vietnam. But it's also another one of these that kind of mashes a bunch of religions together. So it brings together monotheistic deity along with reincarnation. There's some Buddhism, some Confucianism in there. So it's it really, and it even goes as far as to say that there's creator spirits that created the world, and then and there's a devil that's resemblant of Satan. With a kind of good and evil dynamic that's similar to the Abrahamic. So it seems like now, if you want to make a good, successful religion, what you've got to do is you've got to just take all the other ones.
Bit of a mishmash, eh?
Which actually, ironically, is sort of what Christianity did a little bit.
Yes, I can understand how you say that. Yes, certainly. Oh, yes. Look, as it developed, it got even more interesting and more colorful. Prettier cathedrals, lovely paintings. Oh yeah.
But so religion. The thing is that it's not time that necessarily stops it from being a cult. It's sort of time or adherence, number of people who follow it. If you've got a cult and it's got 4 million followers, I guess it's as close to a religion as possible.
Yeah.
Scientology is not big enough to be on this particular list, but one would argue it certainly moved beyond cult levels.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's so very new. It's really 20th century, a religion that started in the 20th century.
Aldous Huxley once said that if you find yourself with some spare time and you're in need of some money, found a religion. And then he founded Scientology. But it's genuine, it's real, guys. And we say that because they sue people a lot.
Well, we are talking religion, and I have alluded to this, I'm sure, on a previous episode, but I want to take us back to a time where ancient Egypt, where in one of their dynasties, they did go from polytheistic to monotheistic for one brief period of about 15 years.
So I know a little bit about this because it's something that the historians didn't know about for a very long time because it was almost wiped clean afterwards.
Yes.
Pharaohs who came afterwards tried to remove the evidence that this had ever been the case. But and I can't remember all the details of it, which I'm sure you have. But if I remember correctly, it was literally a Pharaoh who decided this is it, this is his God, this is how it's going to work, and he overthrew and changed the entire of Egyptian history. I think his son may have been involved in the thing while he was Pharaoh, and then when he came to the throne, along with one of his dad's advisors, they started retracing all the things and unraveling the religion, and then eventually subsequent generations actively worked to remove this embarrassing stain on their lives. Almost like if we had a president who was just like, guys, we're preparing the country for alien abduction.
Yes.
and then for 4 years, he talked about preparing the country for alien abduction, and everyone was doing it. All businesses and industry was working towards, sparkly suits. And then afterwards, once he died, we all just went, "Ooh, it's a little bit embarrassing. Let's never talk about this again." Yeah.
So the author of the book, Act of God, which I might have mentioned that book as well, but this has really stuck with me because he went and tried to solve this crime. Now, he's not necessarily religious, although he tried to put historical pieces of a weird puzzle together.
Hang on, you're going to need to define who this Act of God guy is, because is he a scientific historian, or is he like a lunatic who believes that the pyramids an ancient.
No, he's not an ancient aliens
astrological communication device.
No, he's not that. He's not an ancient aliens chap. He's just a historian.
Okay.
And it all starts with the Valley of the Kings, where the tombs of the pharaohs are. It starts with one weird tomb that is desecrated and but not by robbers. Like before, it was locked up. It was very different to any of the other tombs in there, and the conclusion that he comes to is it's not built to keep robbers out. It is built to keep whatever's inside there from escaping. Yeah. So this
it sounds like batshittery. It's the kind of the medieval thing where they used to hammer an iron cage over people's graves so that they couldn't rise from the dead. Those things where they'd sometimes put a collar, like a blade collar, over the neck of a suspected witch.
Yes.
So then when she rose from the dead, she'd chop her own head off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This sounds like madness.
Well, so the piece of the puzzle he's trying to put together is the lost city of Atlantis is in the Mediterranean.
Oh, no. As soon as people start saying lost city of Atlantis.
Now, he thinks there was this big fat volcano.
He's insane, Ryan.
No, wait.
Okay.
So there's a volcano in Crete or in the Mediterranean. It goes berserk. It's really huge. It's 6 times the size of Krakatoa. And then it first of all buries Atlantis. Okay. That's the one thing it does. But then it's as the ash rises and the plume goes and covers the northern part of Africa. Hey, this is what he says. Sure, the red dust looks like the rivers turn to blood, and locusts come and frogs come because of the change in the environment.
That's what happens when a volcano goes off.
And then when all this shit started happening, he reckons that was the time of the Exodus, because there's not a lot of evidence, historical evidence of the Exodus. So he reckons that's when it happened. And because the Pharaoh is like, oh my God, it's these people, he thinks because of the Exodus and the people and the let my people go Exodus story.
This isn't the thing I was thinking of at all.
He went monotheistic and for a while started to serve the God of the Hebrews. And even, so his name was Akhenaten and the God, he called it Aten. And even, I don't think his kid was Tutankhamun, but Tutankhamun was next.
Hang on, so it is the Pharaoh I was thinking of, just Akhenaten. The story, but that's just this nonsense story leading up to this thing.
Yes. Well, this is how he puts the pieces of the puzzle together. But then Tutankhamun's original name was Tutankhaten or something, Tutankhaten, and then indeed when Akhenaten died, they're like, because he moved the capital down the Nile from where it was to a new place with a new holy sacred things to the god Aten.
Yeah, so Akhenaten was real. He was the 18th dynasty of Egypt.
Yes. By the way, you did say the fact was true, so it is true.
Yeah, but I mean,
we're talking about
stuff. This stuff you're talking about leading up to this, or the reason why he did this.
Yes.
Is all bollocks. It's all bollocks. It's all nonsense. There's no Atlantis. There's no giant earthquake, locust earthquake, volcano. No, this isn't a thing.
Yes,
but there was a pharaoh who did in fact introduce Atenism.
Yes,
the worship of Aten. This is a real thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and then his subsequent generations did in fact try and
wipe him out. Yeah,
because clearly that's madness. Why would you have only one god when you could have lots?
Sure, but yeah, okay, but I mean, it does beg the question: why did he change the whole religion of Egypt? But the other point is, that tomb that I spoke about that was designed to keep something in. They declared that the bad shit started happening in Egypt when there was the birth of one of the princes or something, and his name was Amenhotep III, and so they think that bad shit started happening because Set. Do you know Set, the god of destruction, was embodied in Amenhotep's birth. So he pops into existence.
Listen. So I knew we were going to be.
So they kept him in that tomb in the Valley of the Kings to make sure that the spirit of Set doesn't escape again. Because when Set was born, locusts, rivers of blood, and frogs.
Right. You know, when I saw the topic was religion, I knew we would be dealing with like a lot of batshittery, right? Like a lot of craziness.
Sure.
I did not think we would be giving any kind of attention to some dude that thinks that all of this just out of his own brain, right? He developed this theory linking Atlantis and some invisible volcano that there's no evidence for.
Yeah, and in the Mediterranean, maybe
in the
Crete.
Mediterranean, and then stuff out of the Bible.
Yes.
So he's just this crazy dude, like this crazy.
But he's like, and the cherry on the top was, you see, and they did start worshiping a monotheistic god named Arton, and it was at that time he reckons he's nailed the timeline as well. And
no, the only thing he's nailed is 3.5 bottles of vodka before he wrote that book.
Yeah, so it, I think if one wanted to, it's one of these theories, but one would have to look at similar.
I want to stop talking about this guy, right? It's called what's the fact, not what's the conspiracy theory. Yeah. This is not like I'm done with this. I'm done with this.
But I think the fact was true that they did at one point in their history go from poly to mono.
So that is absolutely true. Yeah, that is true. There's so much, okay, so let's we want to talk about
the word allegedly is going to come up a lot in my facts.
oh, good. Well, I've tried to stick to facts. All right, here's my fact. Jesus as the Son of God was only nailed down as a fact in Christianity hundreds of years after the formation of the religion.
As the Son of God?
As the Son of God, yeah.
The formation of the religion.
Hundreds of years after the formation of the religion.
This is interesting. It's the Son of God. Oh no, I would say no. I would challenge that. But
you'd say they always knew he was the shit.
Well, I think I know some verses where he refers to himself as the Son. Probably a lot in the Gospel of John.
Well, my Father, why have you forsaken me?
Oh, there you go. That's nice. Look at you.
I mean, no, but just because things are in the Bible. Like, listen. So here's what it is. Here's
so I'm
the story.
I'm just saying. Firstly, not true. It's false.
Okay, yeah. It is true. So you've obviously heard of the Council of Nicaea.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, so the Council of Nicaea, it was the very first ecumenical council, which means it's the first meeting of all the people from the church.
Yes.
And they were summoned to Nicaea by Constantine, the Emperor of Rome. And in 325 AD, he invited all of the bishops to his house. And then he was like, listen, I'm going to pay for you all. You can come here. You can stay for free food, free drinks. You can bring guests.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contention about how many people actually showed up. The numbers vary between 300 and 1,000 kind of bishops. Actual delegates, delegates of the church. Bishops, priests, senior leaders but they were allowed to bring guests. So some say there were 1,800 people at the first Council of Nicaea. There were in total 7 of these things.
Oh.
And what they were brought together to do was to stop rifts in the church, because Constantine was convinced that the differing opinions between Christians was going to destroy his empire. They were going to rip the empire apart, and ultimately what he wanted a whole empire all under the same rules, everybody believing the same thing and kind of pulling together. And some of the things that the first Council of Nicaea managed to decide was the proper method for consecrating bishops. They condemned the lending of money at interest by clerics. They refused to allow bishops, priests, and deacons to move from one church to another one. And they declared the primacy of Alexandria in Egypt and Jerusalem as being the main sees over their respective area.
Wow.
And they attempted to nail down a date for Easter, which interestingly to this day still hasn't been nailed down.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still no agreed date on when Easter is.
Oh.
And just as an aside, that's because it was agreed that Jesus was crucified over Passover. And then Passover changes all the time. So you can't be sure what the exact date is so they kind of decided that it'll be a Sunday. sort of around the Passover time, but which one it is, we're not 100% certain. But the real purpose of the meeting was to decide, these questions about whether Jesus was divine or not, like what it was. Because there was a lot of, before the Council of Nicaea, the Christian world knew all sorts of different kind of competing theology. So there was adoptionism that believed that Jesus was an ordinary man who'd then been adopted by God. There's Sabellianism. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three different aspects of the same God. Arianism, the Son of God is not co-eternal with God the Father and is therefore subordinate to him. Yeah. So then there were some other sects that didn't believe in Trinitarianism at all. The Trinity.
Yeah.
So they had all these things, but then the big ones, the main ones, there were two guys, the principal players. It was Arius, who believed that the Son of God was not co-eternal with God the Father, and he was instead distinct from God and therefore subordinate to him. And the supporters of Arius referred to biblical statements such as the Father is greater than I from John 14:28 to back up their claims. And then there's Athanasius, who said that the Father was one God, the Almighty, Jesus, the Son of God, as begotten, the essence of Father, and therefore co-substantial with the Father, meaning of the very same substance of the Father, the very God of very God. So he was one of the Trinity, and they're all the same, and the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost were all actually serious. And they debated for over a month, and they debated so seriously that there's tales of Arius being punched in the face at some point. And at the end, the Council of Nicaea sides with Athanasius. I can't say this. Athanasius.
Wow, Athanasius.
Athanasius. Yeah, so they side with Athanasius, and Arius gets banished. He gets exiled as a heretic.
Jeez. Wow.
So yeah, big deal for a debate at the time. So that's when they decide that God is, that Jesus himself was in fact one of an aspect of God, of the same level as God. That he was that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost were in fact the same thing. So that happened only in 325 AD.
I'm happy with the way you've supported that fact, and that's cool because I think the canonization of the New Testament apparently happened at the Council of Nicaea as well. It's like what books are going to be included, or letters are going to be included
eventually, over the course of the 7, they choose which of the books, because there were hundreds. There were hundreds of books. People had written all sorts of things to support their own individual sects and support their own divisions and their own beliefs and opinions. So they chose the ones that now that they knew who God was and they defined who Jesus was and what his relation to God was and how this was going to work, they could then in future councils sit down and decide which of the books that support this particular argument.
Sure.
But now this sounds like it's like a roaring success, right? Constantine's delighted. Council of Nicaea has succeeded in doing what he wanted it to do. It's brought most of the bishops are now, singing from the same hymn sheet, eh? and they've all kind of agreed, and they're going back as far afield as Britain to tell everybody this is what it is. This is the story of Christianity. Only what happens is he's got a favorite priest, Eusebius, who is actually an Arianist, which is the other one. And he, instead of exiling Eusebius, he keeps him around. And Eusebius kind of uses his influence in the court to soften the now hardline take that has been taken on these other guys. And in fact, this starts spreading because now the Constantine is like, well, maybe these two things can live side by side. Maybe that's fine. So this softer approach now starts letting people know it's okay. You can be an Arianist. It's fine. And it starts spreading through the through the Roman Empire. And it in fact becomes the dominant doctrine in the north, and goes on to becoming the thing that shapes Germanic Christianity and all those sorts of things. And historians say ultimately leads to plays a big part in the fall of the Roman Empire.
Right.
So.
And maybe the great schism between Catholic and Orthodox, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so that's how you once you've decided that somebody's heretic, you gotta weed those heretics out.
Yeah, I don't keep Eusebius
Throw them all on the fire.
You feel
don't keep Eusebius there.
He's just such a nice guy. No,
Yeah, but it's so interesting to find out that like Eusebius Mackiser is named after this like kind of voice in the ear of the leadership, you know?
Yeah. Jumping forward into the modern era, and offshoots of Christianity, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, one of their major things, they've got a lot of different sort of traditions. One of their main things is the rejection of the concept of the Trinity. And just pretty fascinating that even in the modern era, they're debating that issue still in divinity and looking. But what's fascinating always by like a mainstream Christian debating a Jehovah's Witness on the street with their magazines and stuff is they both agree that the scriptures are sacred, and so they both debate from the same thing. And it shows you there how the emphasis on a certain verse and interpretation of these verses.
Exactly. So that's where it kind of came. And in the end, they decided that Jesus was in fact God. And this is such a big decision when you think about it in terms of what it does for the major Abrahamic religions, right? Because that's the main defining difference between Judaism and Christianity and Islam.
Yeah.
Is that one decision?
Yeah, man.
That one decision, because this one oak was cuck at debate.
Yeah.
so shit, he got himself punched in the face. Now we have this divided world. It's yeah.
Wow, man. I before I move on to my next fact, as a monotheist and the three monotheistic religions, there's two little tidbits which I like to give, just as nice things. Now, everyone thinks of the Middle East as a very hectic place to visit, and there could be rockets flying around and all that stuff. And I like to think of it as Jerusalem. I think it means the city of peace, and you've got the dome of you've got a Muslim dome.
I thought you meant the rocket protection dome that protects them from the Palestinian people that they're currently subjugating.
You've got a sacred site for Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, all in that little precinct. And there's mostly not rockets going off, and there's mostly people from these three monotheistic.
Not
and
really
I think
Jerusalem,
in some ways it does live up to its name. I think it does. Yes, there's tension. I'm sure. I'd like to go there myself. I would like to go. I'll go when everyone says it's okay. It's okay now. It's been quiet for a while.
I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon.
But I like that. And then what I also like about the monotheistic religions, all three of them, they're all waiting. There's a word called eschatology, which is not what you think it is.
No, it definitely is.
It's a study of, okay, I think I know what you think it is, but it's a study of how things are going to end, or they're going to come to some sort of ending. And yes, that might be quite shitty, It's all going to go blow up in some big ball of shit. But what I like about them is they're waiting for a person. So obviously the Jews are waiting for the Messiah. The Christians are waiting for the second coming of Christ. And
endless cycle of death and rebirth.
Yes. And in fact, the Muslims they revere the prophet Isa, because that's what they call Jesus. And they also are waiting for Isa's return, which is pretty cool. So Muhammad is their main prophet, but they're waiting for Isa to return. And I just like that.
Other Muslims generally say that they make it very clear, though, that only Allah is worthy of worship.
No, they're not Trinitarians, no ways. But they revere Isa as a prophet and a teacher, good prophet, good teacher, but not divine. But they believe in his return. I like that. And so when the Christians and Jews are standing around and say it is that Jesus comes, then they're both going to run to him and ask the same question. They're going to we've been here before. And then we'll...
Is that your fact?
No.
Was that just a little side story?
So my fact is derived from, you spoke about the Council of Nicaea and the canonization of the New Testament, but the Old Testament was there during the time of the birth of the New Testament, or the activities of the New Testament. And so I want to talk to you about, or tell you a little fact that, allegedly, it's going to be allegedly, okay? But scholars do feel...
I'm worried about allegedly.
Scholars do feel...
It's like these Hancock, what's his name? You've been watching YouTube videos late at night.
He's one of those the dude act of God. He's a similar to a Graham Hancock type of chap. But is Hancock an ancient aliens type of chap?
Yeah, well, there's a hidden chamber underneath the Sphinx, and inside of that is all of the world's knowledge gifted to us by aliens. It's I don't know. You never know what these guys are. You're like David Icke.
The most fascinating thing about David Icke was wasn't he the goalie for Coventry City?
He was. Now he believes. Now he's like out there telling the world that the Illuminati are lizard people and that the Queen was a lizard person. But listen, if you were the Queen and you were a lizard person, would you spend that much time at Balmoral in Scotland? No, you wouldn't. You need the sun. Can't be in Scotland all the time. There's no sun there.
What I find is probably fascinating if you did the research is that those seasons, Coventry had excellent strikers and midfielders, and he never touched the ball. So he had so much time to think. And as the goalie, he stood all the shit. So,
maybe he dived into the pole one too many times or something.
Do you know, allegedly, that there is the famous Alexander the Great prophecies?
So,
I will even tell you.
Religion?
I will even tell you it's in the Old Testament.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay, so if it's a prophecy,
are you saying that these are prophecies about Alexander the Great, or they're prophecies made by Alexander the Great? Or
about him. So before him, and then there was him.
I mean, listen. So this whole Nostradamus thing, where this dude gets high on, I don't know, mushrooms he found in the forest. And then he writes this whole book of rhyming poetry, like Dr. Seuss style rhyming poetry. Yeah. And then only after a thing has happened, people go, this is obviously what he was talking about.
The eagle and the bear. The eagle's definitely the United States.
That's right, yeah. And the bear is definitely Russia. Yeah. And then they sort of apply these things regularly. Mm. Yeah, I mean, nobody can actually say that it's a prophecy. And I'd imagine you get a similar vibe with the Bible, right? Because I know a lot of people have developed code breaking, sort of theories about the Bible, and then they apply their various different codes, and they get messages like Jesus and Satan are one, and then they sort of lift their own entire book out of that because they've just got this look. This code was written on the wall of some ancient temple in Egypt, and when applied to the Bible, it gives you this message. Oh, bullshit. It must sell a great number of books. But I imagine that the Alexander prophecies are probably a similar vibe.
Yeah. So you're saying there is scholarly...
No, I didn't say scholarly. I said there's almost certainly
there is
nut jobbery out there that claims that the Alexander prophecies are real. No doubt.
I'll give it to you. It was... so it's from the book of Daniel. Okay. So now Daniel prophesied... If the Old Testament is to be believed, Daniel prophesied in Babylon. So the exile in Babylon. And he prophesied about the fall of Babylon and that the Persians would pull in. And then he prophesied. Then he's got this mysterious thing about the he-goat. Daniel chapter 8. So,
and Alexander the Great is the he-goat.
Yeah, I think you'll pick it up here, but let me start from
Wouldn't the he-goat
verse
be
1 of chapter 8. So it's like Daniel's vision of a ram and a goat. Okay, so even I can tell you what I think this means. In the third year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, Belshazzar, was he Babylonian or Persian? I think it's Persian. It's already Persian. I don't know. Okay, anyways, here we go. In the third year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision after the one that had already appeared to me, because it's chapter 8. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa in the province of Elam. In the vision, I was beside the Ulai Canal. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with 2 horns standing beside the canal, and the horns were long. One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. Hey, it's a dream, I watched the ram as it charged toward the west and the north and the south. That's important, I think. No animal could stand against it, and none could rescue from its
the Great
power.
Go east.
Well, this is the ram. Wait for the goat.
Okay.
No animal could stand against it, and none could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased and became great. As I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn between its eyes came from the west.
I remember Alexander the Great had a prominent horn.
Okay. Crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. It's amazing. It came toward the two-horned ram I had seen standing beside the canal and charged at it in great rage. I saw it attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering its two horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat knocked it to the ground and trampled on it, and none could rescue the ram from its power. The goat became very great. Now, this is telling, this next part. But at the height of its power, the large horn was broken off, and in its place, 4 prominent horns grew up toward the 4 winds of heaven. Now, apparently there's more in Daniel about...
It's obvious. It must be Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Must be.
So why they say the 4 horns.
Religion.
The 4 horns is what I find it fascinating in my religious journey was because so the 4 horns means when the one horn broke, it's when he died, but then his empire, he didn't have any kids, so it was split between his 4 generals. Yeah. And then later, I think there's a thing about 2. The 4 became 2, and that was changed into the Ptolemaic and Seleucid Empire. So the he-goat comes from the west, nails the ram, and then the one horn disappears in these 4 horns.
Amazing.
Ta-da!
Absolutely. Definitely Alexander the Great.
And what I like about this prophecy is it's prophesying things that happened outside of, controversy. There's a little thing that popped in mind. But it's prophesying things that were extra-biblical. Is that the phrase? So, yes, you got your Messiah coming, and then the New Testament's full of this happened so that this prophecy could be fulfilled, and that's why he was born in Bethlehem. And, so they're literally explaining the fulfillment of the prophecy. But this was fascinating that it prophesied events outside of Scripture.
Have you ever had your future told?
By a fortune teller?
By a fortune teller?
No, there was a time I was a sort of agnostic, a searching agnostic, and I would have had a crack at it. At one stage, I was very into even Hare Krishna and stuff. But no, I would have. I've been open to it, but I didn't. Did you?
No. I once went to a medieval fair where some old woman was doing tarot cards, and I don't know that I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe that this is a thing. Right? Firstly, I absolutely do not believe you can tell the future via old lady and a pack of cards. Wow. Because, I mean, old ladies have tried to tell the future in many numerous ways, right? Like there's the tea.
The tea leaves,
The tea leaves settle in different patterns at the bottom of the cup.
Palm reading.
People have been desperate to know about their futures. And
lifeline.
And the Bible it's often used by absolute cranks to try and predict the future and tell us exactly what's about to happen. It's interesting that you talk about prophets, because prophets is one of the major things in the 3 Abrahamic religions, right?
Definitely.
They love a prophet.
Love it.
They're big fans of the prophets. They can't really seem to agree how many prophets there've been.
Even in the modern churches, there's still a very big push in the charismatics for the prophetic gift. Like you must still, operate in the prophetic and the prophets, and it's fast.
It's so interesting, actually, because we'll get into that. But my fact. Let me just jump on my fact. To be a prophet, you got to be a man. That's my fact.
Man, oh man, are you telling the truth? How well do I know my Old Testament? Yeah, I know. Not a lot of ladies happening. No, I mean that there was. You see, the reason the charismatics are big on the prophetic gift is because it talks about some are teachers, some are apostles, some are evangelists, and some are prophets. And then there's a chapter about the gifts of the Spirit, and then there is a bit of talking about prophesying, but then there's the whole sect that goes, oh, well, those gifts are ceased. They've ceased because there's a verse somewhere that says where there are gifts, they will cease. So there's that big fat debate. But I can't remember a New Testament female prophet. John's the big one at the end, Revelation. Hey, that's the big one. That's a hell of a story there. And then in the Old Testament prophets, certainly no females. We know about Muhammad. So that covers the big 3. No ladies. No, you're speaking the truth.
I'm not. I'm lying.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, look. So if I was speaking strictly about Islam, most people would say I was telling the truth.
Okay.
But in fact, to be a prophet, look, it's very rare for a woman to be a prophet, because what a prophet does, and I'm using this kind of in a very general term, as you say, there is a difference. Islam seems to differentiate between two different types of prophet, but Judaism and Christianity agree that a prophet is somebody who speaks on behalf of God.
Yes.
Who brings a message on behalf of God, or brings new laws on behalf of God. And then Islam says that they're those guys. They speak on behalf of God, and they bring new laws on behalf of God. And then there's other guys who bring teachings and who behave in line with the laws of God.
Yes.
And who
and warn you not to be bad because you're going to be taken into exile.
Right.
Maybe.
So these are the different kinds. And then, so in Christianity, there's a lot of contention, firstly, about how many prophets there are in Christianity. People can't seem to agree exactly what constitutes a prophet in Christianity. So there's some theologians who say there's as many as 88 prophets in Christianity, and some who say there's just 12. But now of those, right, so there are mentions in the Old Testament of 5 women who are prophets.
My word.
It's Miriam from Exodus 15:20, Deborah from Judges 4:4, Huldah from Kings and Chron, Noadiah, and then somebody just called the prophetess. And then in the New Testament, Luke presents a woman by the name of Anna as a woman prophet.
Wow.
So,
how did I miss that?
So there's 6 women out of these 88. It depends how you define this thing. So there are 6 women who might fall under the kind of position of prophetess in Christianity. And Judaism, now this is where things get quite interesting, because in Judaism, the Talmud tells us that there were 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses. Miriam, Deborah, Hannah, Abigail, Huldah, Esther, and Sarah. And
Esther. Esther. There's a whole book of Esther.
But now... The Talmud qualifies that there were, in fact, many more prophets, a whopping 1.2 million of them.
Goodness me.
But only those prophets whose messages were relevant for future generations have been recorded in the books.
That is a difficult one to sort out, eh? 1.2 million people telling you about the future.
But now, so we don't know how many of those were women. We've got no idea. In Islam, there were apparently 124,000 prophets. Again, not all of them have been named. I think we've only got 25 named, none of whom are women. So if I'd said in Islam there are no female prophets, most of the imams would agree with you. There are some who sort of say, well, there's this one word that gets used occasionally that doesn't necessarily define gender.
Okay.
So it could be, it doesn't preclude the existence of a female prophet.
Okay.
But vastly more say no. In Islam, prophets have to be men, and then they try and explain why. If you are a woman who believes in equality, you may want to block your ears for the next minute, because these are the reasons. The task of prophethood requires fighting in war, secretly and publicly teaching the faith, meeting with people continuously, dealing with liars, hypocrites, apostates, establishing government, and much more. These tasks are more suited for men, as Allah has made them physically stronger and more capable of working long hours outside the home. Thus, the role of father, husband, and prophet is easier to fulfill for a man. Whereas the natural restrictions on women, including pregnancy, childbirth, nursing, postnatal bleeding, and the raising of children, limit her physically to handling the duties of mother, wife, and prophethood altogether. She's more prone to being burnt out. So Allah doesn't choose her as a prophet because she is weak. So there you are. But you see, I mean, it's actually so interesting, because they really do get their, like all of the religions get their knickers in a knot about this whole what is a prophet and how is a prophet. Because sometimes some of them will say, oh no, a prophet is somebody who was spoken to by an angel and who delivered a message. But then there's plenty of examples of people where, like, an angel showed up and was just like, hey bro, what are you doing this weekend? And then the guy was like, I'm gonna go visit my brother. Oh cool. Allah just wanted you to know that you that he thinks you're cool and he loves you. Oh, thanks very much.
Prophet.
So that guy's not a prophet.
Not a
right?
prophet.
He's not a
Okay.
prophet. He just got chatted to by. Yeah. And then there's all these sort of stories like there's the story of Saul, for example, the king of Israel.
Yes.
Saul fell under the influence of God's spirit.
Yes.
And then he starts prophesying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't say what he said, but while he speaks prophecy,
Right.
and he's technically not a prophet himself because he's kind of overcome by the spirit that speaks on his behalf. So he's not the prophet. So he doesn't count.
Oh.
So you see, this is where they really do get quite twisted up about it. But they all largely agree that women are a bit shit as prophets. Can't be a prophet if you're a woman. I mean, yeah, it's like they just didn't think about it, like they just didn't give a fuck. Like this, honestly, there's 25 names in the Quran for prophets, and not a single one is a woman. Obviously, as you said, like prophets are shared sometimes between the religions.
Yes.
Abraham is Ibrahim. Moses is Musa. Elijah is Elias. Elisha is Elias. Jonah is Yunus. John the Baptist. Yahya.
Wow.
I think that's how you'd say it.
So someone like Jonah and the whale is revered by Islam as well.
Yeah, as a prophet. And so in Islam, Adam is a prophet.
Wow.
Noah is a prophet. Moses,
Okay.
these are all prophets. Yeah, as I say, they've got 124,000 of them. You gotta have some names.
Wow.
But interesting that Adam is one.
Yeah.
I mean, traditionally he's very like
Uh-oh.
he does everything bad. He's
Absolutely.
all against the.
But he had them kids, eh? He had many.
Yeah.
Oof. That's great, man.
Well, he had two, as far as we know, right?
Yeah, well, according to
And one killed the other one.
Joseph, yeah, well, that's awkward. But according to Josephus, the Jewish historian, they had about 33 kids.
Yeah, he would have to.
Yeah, because I have two boys, and the one's got and killed. We have two sons. Oh, one son.
We've got one son, and the next generation ain't coming from just him with what he does behind the rock.
Yeah.
Yes, we've seen you, Abel. Cain, right? Cain's the one who killed Abel.
Cain killed Abel, yeah.
Yeah. We've seen you. It's disgusting. It's dirty in the eyes of the Lord. Oh, says the dude who ate the apple.
Why do you always have to bring up my faults?
Yeah.
You had one job. Just don't eat the fucking apple.
I mean, that's that whole apple thing, right? Let's be honest. Like, that's God just saying to them, effectively what he said to them was, let's see what lasts longer, your willpower or eternity. Because at some point they were going to fuck up, right? Like eventually. Not free will. Anyway.
Man, that's some lovely stuff right there. And I had another tidbit which jumped into my head about all of these linking prophets. It's very, very exciting stuff, but it's jumped out my head. And now I'm going to take you in the land of the monotheists, and we're going to go a little bit east to a mighty river which brings water and life to 500 million people. It's a bit sad story, very sad story of the river Ganges because of its pollution and what to do about it. And the devoutly religious still believe, despite its terrible pollution, that they separate the material from the spiritual, and that Ganga and her water will still cleanse you of your sins, and in fact, help you also break that karmic cycle, take you into a place of eternity as well. And in fact, if the ashes of the dead are thrown into the Ganges, and by the time they reach the ocean represents the escape from the karmic cycle, and Ganga is taking you there, ushering you there, and cleansing you of your sins while you're doing that. So it's all groovy. Hey, sometimes there's not enough wood and coal to completely cremate the corpse. So sort of half ones, halfly cremated corpses are thrown into the Ganges. Plus, the different types of pollution in there, man. It's 2,500 kilometers long. So it's like from here to Joburg and another 1,000 Ks. The number of towns and cities built along its banks are enormous. It's about 100 towns that have a population of 100,000 and more. Then there's like 90 towns with a population between 50 and 100,000. And then there's still another small group of sort of villages and towns. And sewage is a problem, factory pollutants. And that is the Ganges.
But listen, I know exactly how religious people, Hindus, feel about the Ganges. You know, how you can believe that something good still exists there despite all the pollution. Because I love the movie American Beauty, and that's despite everything Kevin Spacey has done. So you have to separate the movie from Kevin Spacey. You have to separate Pirates of the Caribbean from Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
you have to be able to separate the art and the artist.
Yeah, that's beautiful analogy. Yeah. And so it's the irony of the Ganges is it's the river of life, and it's also river of death, and it's a paradox. And a great, great paradox, but it's named after the goddess Ganga. And
I smoked her at university. It's so blasphemous. There's like 1 billion people are going to write terrible things about.
The story is quite beautiful. And so herein begins my fact, is that there were 60,000 souls that needed cleansing and were trapped in some kind of torment. And so it was said that Ganga was going to embody water, come down and cleanse these souls so that they can escape the torment and enter into eternity. And so she embodied the river Ganga and came down in a great torrential flood. Which is interesting if you think of.
So what you're saying is essentially the river is the goddess,
and her coming down was also in a flood.
I see. You're linking this to Judaism and and Christianity again.
I didn't say that. You said that. No, but yeah.
But are you saying that? Is that your fact? That they are linked? This is the ancient flood of.
No, I'm not. Not part of the fact.
You wouldn't dare. All right.
But she did. She came down in a torrential flood. Ganga.
I came down in a torrential flood once. Had to change sheets. I mean, why not? Why shouldn't there be a flood? Why not? You can't lie about everything, right? I'm going to say it's true.
No, I'm lying about Ganga.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful because Shiva, her dad, he said, don't go down in a torrential flood. You'll destroy everything. So climb down gently.
Shiva, her dad.
Wow.
I mean, Shiva's
her dad. No,
goddess, right?
Shiva's not her dad.
No,
her dad was
Himla.
Himla, which is the embodiment of the Himalayas.
Oh, I see.
So
well, that makes sense.
So one of them said, climb down gently. Don't just pour down. You're going to destroy everything with your Ganges voluminous water. So climb down gently with my beard. And over 1,000 years, let your waters flow into this land and into the sea. So she didn't come down in a torrential flood. She came down in over 1,000 years. But the beard is beautiful because it's the source
like the ice
of the river.
like the snow melting, right?
Yes, and it comes down in little things, and then it eventually makes its way into the river Ganges, flows all the way into the Bay of Bengal. So no torrential flooding, but a gentle climbing down off Himla's or Shiva's beard. Shiva a girl?
Himmler. Yes, she was.
Sorry,
a girl.
man. No beard there. Okay, Himmler's beard. Climb down on the beard. In there. No torrential flood. I love that.
I do too. It's
because
very poetic. I kind of wish that all religions were that poetic.
Because also, and then, so she's the great giver of life because water and all that stuff. But then there was, I heard a talk, actually the Reverend at the Methodist Church in town, who was like,
definitely a reliable source on other religions.
Yeah, no, but he was saying things like if that's what it represents, and looking at the paradox and irony of the Ganges, but if what they were doing there, if you look at that myth of the beard and stuff, is the colonial deforestation of that section of the Himalayas did a lot to, cause a lot of sort of natural damage, and that was also a source of sort of filtering the water. And it just led to more kak. Whereas in the original myths of the land were there to kind of produce a harmony between people and nature. And when a new force comes into that system, they kind of have quite a destructive force on it. And so maybe the whole industrialization of the region and the businesses and the factories and putting their shit into just was sad.
Okay, J.R.R. Tolkien. Good. Right. I'm going to do a kind of a fun one. So it wasn't on my list. It wasn't on my list of 13 of the world's largest religions, but you probably know them quite well. Rastafarians.
Oh, yes.
You know Rastafarians.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah. So Rastafarians, and this is my fact, Rastafarians and Orthodox Jewish people share the same concerns when it comes to cutting their hair, and for exactly the same reason.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that as a fact. I'm happy to say it's true because what I know about them is, so the Hebrew word for God, Yahweh, they call their God Jah, and they also Zion is important to Jews because it means Jerusalem. Their Zion is Ethiopia, and yeah, they do take some Orthodox Christianity, Judaism. And I even think the Queen of Sheba might have even had something to do with its origin because she visited Solomon and his stuff. So yeah, I will say, but they're not cutting the hair. Is it the same with Orthodox Jews? I'm happy to go. Yeah, I wonder. I think it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is.
Wow, man.
So it comes from, for the Rastafarians, they take it from the Old Testament scripture, Leviticus 19:27, which says, "Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your beard." And they've basically taken that to mean that don't cut your hair. Just grow it. So you see your Rastafarians will not cut their hair.
Brilliant.
But it's because of that particular thing from Leviticus. But obviously now the Judaic one is a little bit more complex, right? Because this is an issue of debate across Judaism, because essentially the very early scriptures just say that a man should not round the corner of his head.
Yeah.
Which they then kind of took to mean, the Mishnah interpreted this as applying only to men, and that it became a custom in certain circles then to let the hair grow on the side of the head, because it doesn't round the side of your head, right? It keeps it sort of square.
That's the Hasidic Jews look like that. Have they got like their sideburns are kind of
right. So this basically what they decided was that the temporal bone here, sort of by your ear, is the bone under which, and you must listen to the wording here. Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head. Where's the actual? Let me get the Jewish law. Yeah, so you may not. You cannot cut, trim, or shave the hair above this bone. So now the Jews are kind of, they agree you can't do that. You can't cut the hair here, which then obviously it then grows into these long sort of curls. But what they're not agreed about is, what do you do with the hair below that bone? Because does that round your face? Are you then rounding your face there? So you've got different sects of Judaism that then grow their sideburns kind of to there. So then the sideburns and the hair, the payot, I think is what they're called. They all kind of grow together there. So there's guys then that that try and keep their hair long. Some of them that just don't cut it, can't trim it. They're allowed to, and the ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jews never cut their hair below the line. So they've got conspicuous, pronounced bunches of hair that protrude from the side of their faces. So they're not rounding the payot in their head. Yeah,
but you see,
but it's this big debate about what exactly is the payot. Where is it? Which bit is it the bit that's beneath the cheekbone? Yeah. So this is heavy debate in Jewish society. They can't agree on it.
But Bob Marley did a lot for Rastafarianism. I think if it weren't for him, Oaks wouldn't really know about it much.
There's people. I mean, there's people who say that Bob Marley sort of founded it, or that he didn't, right? So the Rastafarianism was started by a guy by the name of Marcus Garvey. He was born in Jamaica in 1887, and he was a political activist and like a supporter of black empowerment. And basically, what Rastafarianism says is that Africa is a paradise, and there's an encouragement from anybody who is of the African diaspora.
Yes.
To return to Africa and make it a big deal. And he actually said people should do that. They should return to Africa when when a black king is crowned.
Okay.
And of course, then that happened with Haile Selassie of Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And so he became like so Marcus Garvey's kind of the prophet.
Yes.
And Haile Selassie's the one who was prophesized.
Yeah.
So then he's the Messiah. He's the Emperor Messiah. And so I think, his the whole religion's named after him. His name was originally Rastafari Makonnen.
Oh, okay.
So that's where Rastafari comes from. And then, so when he visited Jamaica as a holy day, the day that he visited Jamaica, which I think is 21st of April, 1966.
Oh, wow.
So 21st of April is a holy day for the Rastafari. But they smoke a lot of weed.
Sure.
But that's their way of communing.
Yes.
With God and nature.
Yes.
But otherwise they're extremely healthy. They don't drink. They eat foods that, I mean, some of them interpret it to mean basically like raw, healthy vegetables and nothing else. So they really are very kind of healthy religion, which you can't really tell because a lot of the guys you meet have there was a Rastafarian society at my university, and the guys used to smoke like an ice cream container of weed every day. Like they'd just sit on the library lawns, absolutely blasted out of their minds.
Singing "One Love." One love,
I mean, you got,
One love. I do love Bob Marley very much.
So this thing, honestly, researching this particular podcast has actually been so good because so many of the religions are just about like, just don't hurt other people. Just be really, really cool. And I don't know why we sort of picked the three, three of our biggest religions to be the most warlike ones, the ones that want to be
not branding,
want to be fighting with each other. Yeah, because you look at so many of them, you've got Taoism and Confucianism.
Buddhism.
Also, Confucianism and Taoism say that there's an energy in the world, and your job is to try and like align yourself with the energy. Taoism says that you do it passively, and Confucianism says you've got to seek alignment with the universe. But all of these guys, like even Shintoism,
it's lovely.
It's Zoroastrianism, as you said.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's all about like just be cool to each other. Just be nice. Try and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Try not to be shitty. And and then we were like, which religion we should definitely have as our main religion in the West is the one that attacks other religions and tries to convert them and literally goes and hacks them apart for hundreds of years. We seem to, I don't know, I feel like we made some mistakes along the way.
And then you got the New Zealand rugby team who go and name themselves the Canterbury Crusaders.
Right.
And then have you seen, like, before they host a rugby match, especially if it's a final or something, they actually, like, their cheerleaders and all that shit. They got oaks on horses carrying crosses.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah.
Heavy. Did you
awkward in an armor and stuff. I don't. Well, they try to make it look, and that's their cheerleaders. Go.
That was my favorite highlight of the Qatari World Cup was when all those British guys who showed up in Crusader gear got kicked out of the stadium.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's what the British guys do, is they show up dressed like knights to these football games and stuff, with their St. George crosses and whatever. And then they try to do it in the Middle East, and the Middle East was like, the fuck you will.
Oh my God.
It's like, imagine if they held a World Cup in Israel and people showed up dressed like the SS.
Wow.
It's exactly, I mean, it's, 500 years from now in that example, but yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's been a very interesting episode. It's been lovely. It's multiple choice time.
It is multiple choice time. I've gone really chill on mine. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I've gone stuck to the Old New Testament. I want to know, and I'll talk a little bit about why I think this is quite interesting. But the Apostle Paul, which of these was he?
Okay.
Was he a Pharisee, a Sadducee, a high priest, or a rabbi? I'll repeat that. Apostle Paul, was he a Pharisee, a Sadducee, a high priest, or a rabbi? It's a tough one. How much do you know of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I know what a rabbi is. And Pharisees, they were like the bad guys in a lot of the Bible. They were the Gargamel to Jesus' Smurf. No, they were bad guys a lot of the time. I mean, the Samaritans were also, except in fact, the Samaritans must have been the ultimate cunts, because just one of them did a nice thing and he's been remembered forever. Like, everyone was like, this guy is so unusual for his people. They must have been total fucking dickheads. Like, imagine being like that much of an asshole that one of you just helps somebody who's been mugged on the side of the road and he gets remembered forever. Right,
this is so out of place of you guys. Well done.
Yeah. Wow, this guy's so weird. His other people are such fucking knobs. Like if you go to an Australian rugby match and there's a supporter there who's nice to you.
the good Australian.
The good Australian.
It's the name of one newspaper, I'm sure. The good Australian. The friendly Australian.
All right, so Pharisee I know very little about. Just as I say, it's a term for me in the Bible. A Sadducee, I've got no idea what that even is. And then what's the other one?
High priest.
Well, that doesn't sound like a thing.
And a rabbi.
High priest sounds like a Rastafarian. I do not know. So he's the one who wrote Revelations.
Well, no. So Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He wrote all the letters. Letters. Corinthians, Romans, Ephesians, Thessalonians, Philippians. What's that other place? There's another place. There's 7 places. Colossians. And then the letters to the individual people, like I think Philip and Titus.
People must have gotten pretty sick of him.
Lots of letters.
Is it a different Paul that was on the island in Greece writing Revelations?
John.
Was that John?
Yeah, John.
He was the one and then they discovered his cave. I don't know if you know this. I've been there.
You said there was a weird fungus growing on the
cave. There's a fungus growing outside the cave entrance that they reckon he ate.
It's time for the Revelation. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's still there. You can still go there and eat the same fungus.
Yeah. Patmos, eh? Patmos. Yeah.
He did a letters to the Pharisees, didn't he? Old Paul.
No,
it's letters to the Corinthians.
Corinthians,
the big ones.
Yeah. So the cities are there's modern day Turkey. There's 3. Modern day Greece. There's 3, and then Romans is obviously Italian. But the Greek ones are Corinthians, Thessalonians, and the hell is the other? Philippians. And then the modern day Turkey is Ephesians, Colossians, and Galatians. That's the other one. So letters to all these churches, and then some of the individuals as well. Timothy, Titus, Jude, Philip. Is there a book of Philip? Oh, no, I don't think so. There's a Philip, but not a book of, I don't know.
When I worked at the newspaper.
Peter, 1 Peter. No, that's written by Peter. So sometimes if you wrote a letter, you called it your own. You called it your name. Sometimes if you wrote a letter to the oak, you called it the oak you're writing it to. But 1 Peter, 2 Peter, I think is written by Peter. It's a bit strange.
Wow. When I worked at a community newspaper, there was a guy that used to write a letter every week. and he was pretty annoying because he would just write about whatever like popped into his head that week.
Did you pop
I
it
have
in?
noticed that loaves of bread are now being cut in thicker slices. So one gets fewer slices and presumably goes through the loaf quicker, thereby making the bread manufacturer more money. You know, that kind of that sort of stuff. Yeah, that guy, he used to, this is what Paul was like. Fucking another letter from Paul. What's he on about this time? No, he's banging on about I don't know, what did he bang on about?
Yeah, so how to also the beginnings of Christian doctrine and how to run the church and how to behave and what is important doctrinally and theologically and how it all works.
They must have held him in pretty high regard to basically be like, all this dude's books go in. We love him. All his books.
Yeah, totally. And he was the one who had that Road to Damascus thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was Saul to Paul.
He was the J.K. Rowling of his day.
Yeah.
He was writing the shit that everyone wanted to read.
It's more non-fiction.
So was he a rabbi?
Eh? Are you going with rabbi?
Rabbi, yeah.
All right. The answer is he was a Pharisee.
Damn it, that was my first choice, and I sat here and changed my mind.
You see, so the Pharisees, Jesus was at war with many of them in his time, but they were actually a bunch of good guys because they held to quite strict Orthodox Judaism. And from there, so of course, what happens in 70 AD is the temple is destroyed. So there was actually a high priest thing that served in the temple. The Romans destroyed the temple in 70 AD. And so Judaism was in a traumatic state and had a diaspora again. So what happened after that was the Pharisee sect gave birth to the rabbinical vibe where, okay, so the temple's gone, but we're still a people. We're still God's people. We're going to build our synagogue and worship there, even though the temple's gone, but there's still the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. So, but the Sadducees, what was also happening in that time, thanks to Alexander the Great, there was a little bit of mega Greek influence all over that Middle East. So there were some people going, we like the Greeks, we like their wisdom. Should we not lean a bit and kind of borrow and merge our religion with the sort of Grecian way? So they were called Hellenistic sort of Jews versus the Hebraic Jews. So the Sadducees came out of the Hellenistic Jewish tradition. Pharisees, Hebraic Jews.
I thought the Sadducees was the star sign after Leo. I don't know where Sagittarius comes in. I don't even know. It's a stupid joke.
But the significance of Paul, I think, okay, and then high priest rabbi. So yeah, he wasn't a rabbi yet, but some rabbi was also just a word for teacher. So they called Jesus rabbi. But the rabbinical thing came out of the Pharisees. But he was a Pharisee.
Brilliant. Mine's almost as serious as yours.
And Paul was pretty important because he considered himself a Roman citizen, which is why I appealed to Caesar when I wanted to kill him. He considered himself a Hebrew of Hebrews as a Pharisee, but he was born and raised in a Grecian city, and he was, in his own words, raised in the wisdom of the Greeks. So he thought, a little bit of everything. He had the Greeks, the Romans, and the Hebrew thing. And he was the
perfect dude to be writing these letters, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. Mine's deadly serious as well. So in Catholicism, one of the big deals about Catholicism is that they've got a lot of saints, right?
Yes.
And each of the saints have got like superpowers or something.
Yes.
They've all had to commit miracles. Yeah. Most of them have had to have been executed for being Christian.
Yeah.
And then they get assigned like that they're the patron saint of very specific things, you know? And what I want you to determine is which of these is not a real saint. All right. So there's Saint Amphiles, the patron saint of domestic dispute. Saint Drogo, the patron saint of coffee and ugly people. Saint Barbara, the patron saint of fireworks. And Saint Cyprian, the patron saint of occultists.
Man, those all sound ridiculous. You're saying only one of them's not true.
Only one of them's not true, yeah. Yeah, the other three are all true. Do you want to do them again?
Yeah, no. I don't know the names, but I remember domestic disputes, fireworks, coffee and ugly people, and occultists.
Yeah.
I'm. So you've made up one.
Yeah, I have. I've made up one of them.
I was thinking domestic disputes is the one you made up, but I think you've made up fireworks. I think coffee and ugly people is I think it would be a thing, and I think domestic disputes is a thing.
You think you need a patron saint for ugly people? Like, who's actually gonna pray to this dude?
And then fireworks you made up, and then the other occultists is for some reason I think it would, somewhere in the world, because the further they moved from the Vatican, like South America and the islands and that, then the churches were patron sainting some strange things. So I'll say yes. Fireworks is bollocks.
Okay, let's start with the one you were most confident about, right? Saint Drogo, patron saint of coffee and ugly people. Yeah, Drogo's mother died during childbirth, and he felt really bad about it, and he used to self-flagellate himself throughout childhood. And then he got to 18, and he went on a pilgrimage. And in his pilgrimage, he caught disease, like a disfiguring disease, that made him hideous. And then a local kind of church said to him, "No, you can stay in this little cloister so that you don't stop scaring the local people." And then he stayed there for, I think, 12 years, where he survived on nothing but the Eucharist and bowls of warm water. And you see, it's the bowls of warm water is why he is now the god, the patron saint of coffee. That's all it took, was his bowls of warm water, and then obviously the disfiguring disease is what made him patron saint of ugly people. Saint Cyprian was apparently an occultist himself. Tried to cast spells on a woman he wanted to get to love him, a Christian woman, but she kept blocking him with the power of the Lord.
Blocking him.
Yeah, and then eventually he converted.
Took to the hand, eh?
Yeah. Eventually he converted and they fell in love. But after that he also wrote a book of powerful spells, like spells that could help you actually invoke the saints.
Wow!
And that book spread around and was published in several languages. So in the end, he's the patron saint of witches, sorcerers, spirit workers, both good and evil.
Wow.
And the patron saint of occultists.
My word, that is odd.
Yeah, and then Saint Amphiles, the patron saint of domestic disputes, I made up. Saint Barbara, the patron saint of fireworks. Barbara was the daughter to a wealthy heathen by the name of Dioscorus. And when she converted to Christianity, he decided that the best way to demonstrate his displeasure would be to torture her to death and then behead her with his own hands. And then while he was walking home from having done this, he was struck by lightning, proving that God was a vengeful lightning-casting God. And so Saint Barbara became the patron saint of fireworks.
I love it.
Yeah, no. How they decide to assign these things is sometimes a bit tenuous. There's a patron saint of the internet, and but he's a guy who was a teacher in the 500s. This dude would never have imagined what the fucking internet was, but because he was filled with knowledge and he used to teach the people around him, they figure that's what the internet does.
Yeah.
Obviously, they haven't seen the parts of the internet I frequent.
No patron saint there.
Yeah.
Man, do you my little fun fact at the end was can you name any pop songs that quote scripture?
Oh.
Yeah. I was thinking about it on the way. I actually know 3.
I'm sure there must be a Creed one. Creed has to, they have to have had scripture.
Oh, were they a religious bunch?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who all the religious bands are.
Well, because to me, it's like I like it when a religious song hits the pop charts, because then it's like you nailed it,
See
what
you did there.
Otherwise, you just hide behind your sort of Christian gospel music or something. No, if it must be so good. Well, exactly. That was the one that I thought of. My heart is where my treasure lies. I think that's directly from scripture. Nice song. And then by the rivers of Babylon. Hey, that's straight from, almost word for word is the whole kind of psalm, I think. And then the other one I thought of was, the birds To everything there is a season, that lovely 60s song.
Yeah.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn. That's except the turn part. That's not scripture. But it's Ecclesiastes or something, chapter 3 or something.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. There's a bonus little quick fact for Matt to edit into a short for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of short, if you're still with us, thank you very much. This was not short. It was a difficult one. Let us know what you thought. Did we get it right? Did we come across correctly? Did we nail it? Did we? Yeah.
And now for the benediction, may the grace of our Lord and love of our Father go with you and be with you always. Amen.
John Travolta, Tom Cruise. Please donate generously.
Thanks for watching and join us next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.